Hello again everyone, it's Tuppence. Welcome back to my channel. It's Froggy Friday again and I've got the frog mould. It's July the 4th, which is American Independence Day. So I'm going to do a themed frog, an Independence Day frog. I've mixed up some resin already. I'm using the Apex resin 1 coat. It's a fast cure thick coat. I've not used this before, but I just wanted to put a layer in the bottom of my frog. So I mixed this up by weight, which I really liked actually. I've got 11 grams of part A and 10 grams of part B. So there's only a small amount in here. I'm going to pour this into the bottom of my mould. I mixed this up by hand and it's got an awful lot of bubbles. It's pretty hot in my craft studio at the moment, so I'm hoping that means that it will release the bubbles a little bit. So I only need a small amount in the bottom here. I just want enough to do some magnification, and I am going to be adding another layer on top of this, and I don't want either of these layers to spill over into the arms or the legs. So I think that will be enough. I need to leave this now and hope that it debubbles, and I'll be back once that is cured. This layer is set now, and unfortunately I do have a line of bubbles down the middle. I guess that's the price you pay for using a thick, fast setting resin. It was super hot here and it literally cured within 2 hours, so it really didn't get a chance to completely degas, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to be adding another layer on top, so I'm hoping some of that will be disguised. We'll see. So this is craft resin. This is a low viscosity resin. I'm going to put a small amount on top there. I'm just going to tilt this so that it covers the layer that I have already. That should be good. Okay, so here, oh, that's not going to show up very well, is it? This is a saying that I printed out on some acetate using my laser printer. It says liberty and justice for all, which is part of the Pledge of Allegiance, if I remember rightly. I have some cousins who are American, but obviously I don't celebrate Independence Day, so I don't know all of the sayings, but I do know that this is a beautiful phrasing and I wanted to put it into the resin. So I'm just going to lay that down. Now I'm going to use my craft stick to push this down underneath that resin. I want to make sure that it is all covered and literally push it down flat to that layer that's already cured underneath. That way I hope that it will suction in place and not keep moving around, because even if this is sitting still, resin will move about. It will kind of draw itself into the middle, and that could cause this to float around, and I really do want this to remain central. So I'm just making sure that it is all covered with resin, but I'm trying not to scrape it, although this is the back of the piece, so the printed side is on the other side. Okay, so that now seems to be covered. Right, hopefully that'll stay there, but I will keep coming back and checking on it. Now I'm just wondering if I should put some more. Yeah, I think I'm going to put the rest of this in, and I will stop before it gets to the point where it's about to spill over. Just see if I've got the right amount, and it looks like actually I guessed pretty well. Scrape this out of my pot so I don't have to find something else to pour that into. Great. All right, so I'm going to leave this to sit here, and as I say, I will keep coming back and checking to make sure that that text is central and hasn't wandered around. And I'm back, and unfortunately I did have some part of the resin that spilled over into this back leg. I tried to break this off while it was really soft, and you can see that, yeah, I broke the seal. So I might as well take this out because the damage is already done. I am going to try and break this off and reuse it. I've got, I hope, a fix. You can see it's a really, really thin amount that went over the edge. It was so close. So I'm just going to bend this back and forward and snap that off. There you go. That shows you how thin that was. Okay, so yeah, you can see the bubbles there. Unfortunately, nothing I can do about that, but I am going to be backing this in white resin, so they might get disguised. At least I can see that I have got my writing the right way round and it's totally readable. So liberty and justice for all. So I do want to use this and put this back in and then pour my white on the top. But before I do that, I need to seal this in with a little bit of clear to stop the white from leaking down around it. And I also want to put some colours in the front legs and the back legs. And I couldn't do that with this little chunk in there. Okay, PPE on. I've got my gloves and a dust mask. And I'm going to be using the Let's Resin chrome powders. I've got their blue and the red. Gorgeous, gorgeous colours. So I'm going to be putting the blue in the front and the red in the back legs. So how beautiful is that? So this is the brush that came in the kit and I've been using it before. So I'm just cleaning it off on the back of my glove. Then I can pick up the powder and brush it into the mould. So obviously this is just going to be me painting the mould. So I'm going to speed this up a tiny bit and I will put some music on. So I've got it mostly covered, but you can see that this is my broken mould. I didn't realise that was what I was using. And that must be where the super glue is, and the mica is not sticking to it. So I'm going to see if I can rectify that. I'm just going to use a bit of isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to squirt that onto the table and use a cotton bud. And then see if I can just apply that in place. And if I can get it damp enough, doesn't really fit in there, but if I can get that damp enough, when I paint the mica on, it may stick even on those areas, just enough to cover it so that when I put the resin in, the resin will stick. And yeah, that doesn't look like that's worked. It might be something that I'm going to have to rectify afterwards. I'm going to try a paintbrush just in case I couldn't get the cotton bud into that area. And that's a little bit better. The mica seems to be sticking to that area, so I'm going to try and do on the inside here as well, and see if I can get that to stick. And if I can, all well and good, but if I can't, well, like I said, I will deal with it afterwards. I think it's probably time for me to retire this mold because I didn't realize that was what I'd actually picked up. Okay, so we'll deal with this afterwards. I just need to go ahead and clean off all of this excess mica, and then I can get to pouring the resin. That's nice and clean now, and I want to put this back in. So obviously, yeah, the seal's broken. If I pour white on top of that, it's going to drip down. So I've mixed up a tiny bit of clear resin, and I'm going to pour that into the bottom, and I hope that this is going to be enough to stick this in without any bubbles. So I'm just going to pour that in, make sure it gets into the head. I don't need a lot because I am going to squish this down. I just want enough for it to make a suction. Might try a little bit more. I don't really want it to be running into the legs, although it's not a disaster if it does, because I will be backing it in the white anyway. So if a little bit goes in, then I think it will still be fine. So let me push this into place, and then I'm going to press that down, and that should squish all of that resin that I've just put in there up. Try and make sure I get rid of any bubbles, and now I'm going to pour this over the top, and it can do the seal. And yeah, it is going in the legs, that's fine. I just want it to seal all the way around the top edges, so that when I pour the white in, you know, once this is set, there is no chance of it going underneath. I don't want any white to be underneath that clear. Okay, let me scrape out as much as I can in here. Okay, that's the last little bit, and I literally did one pump each of the part A and part B of craft resin, which is low viscosity because I want that to run down and fill in all of the gaps. And I also want it to be able to debubble. It does mean I'm going to have to wait longer for this to cure, but that's okay. Get this all smoothed out. Make sure it is covering up that seam along the edges, and then it'll be a case of leaving this to set and crossing my fingers. So I can see a kind of bubbly bit up here, so I'm just going to pull this away and push some of that resin down the back, and then push the piece back in with my stick and hope that that will sort itself out. Okay, back when this is cured. Hopefully this is now ready for its next layer, the white layer. I've mixed up 3 ounces of craft resin, and I'm going to add to it some Supreme White pigment. That's from Apex Resins. I'm just going to give this a stir around and make sure that all the pigment that's settled at the bottom is mixed in. Okay, I think that's enough. So there should be enough on my stick here now to put that into the resin. I'm going to use the lollipop stick to transfer that into my cup, and then I can mix this around till it's thoroughly mixed in. I don't want any streaks or lumps of the pigment in there. There's a little bit more pigment to mix in. Make sure that is all one solid colour, and you can see that it's not very opaque because I am going to be putting these opalescent chunky glitters in, and I do want them to be visible once they're in there. So make sure I scrape all the sides, and then that should be ready to add the glitter. So I'm going to open this pot of luscious glitter. I'm not going to be stingy, so that's a good amount that's in there. And now I can mix this around, make sure that all of these pieces of glitter are coated in the resin, and it should sink down and lay on top of that clear layer, and you'll be able to see it from the front. Okay, time to fill up the frog. Froggy Friday is hosted by Lisa, Girl in the Garage, Karen of the Dragon's Cave, Loula, Nerd Goblin Art, Tim Watkins, Bass Resonator, and Gert Creates. Check the description box below for the playlist. Okay, it's time to see whether I've got a hit or a miss. I'm going to try and demold this. So this is the broken mould, and I had a little trouble with it last time, so I'm hoping that this time it should be okay. Pull that off the hip. Yep, that looks like it came off okay. Just get these off the toes, and alright, has the seal worked or did the white leak? That looks pretty good. I've got a little bit of frosting there. I don't know what that is, something on the mould. I might need to just give this a quick top coat of UV resin because I think I've got maybe had a little air bubble with that last bit of clear that I put in there. But yes, it completely sealed and I didn't have any of it leaking, so great. It's a hit. Right, I'm happy with the way he looks now, but he needs one more thing before I can fully call him done, and that is for me to go to my Cricut and cut out some tiny white stars on vinyl. So once I've done that, I will be back and I can stick them on. Okay, so I've cut out my stars using my Cricut. Now these are 5mm and I've cut them out of white Oracle vinyl. This is an outdoor sign vinyl, so once I've stuck these on, I'm not going to need to seal this, they'll be fine. I've cut out 10 in total and I'm going to place 5 on each leg. So once I've done this, I think my frog will be done. Okay, that's one leg, and now I'm going to see if I can put these in the same place on the other leg. I'm just going to make sure that I push them down with my fingers really well and make sure there's no air bubbles underneath them. If you can do that, then they'll stay there quite happily. I've put this vinyl through my dishwasher and it's been fine. Okay, and I think that's all I need to do. Here is my Liberty Frog. I'm not going to colour in the eyes. I want that to stay white so that it doesn't detract from that centre. So yeah, finished. I hope you all have a really happy and safe Independence Day. And I hope that you've liked this video. And if you have, comment, share, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, there should be a QR code up on the screen. You can scan that and then you will link to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything and you'll be able to see what I'm going to do next time. Stay tuned for some photos and thank you so much for watching.